What is up, everybody? Welcome in to the PWTorch Fireside Chat for Friday, July 29th, 2022. I'm Zach Haydorn. Hello, all. Tyler, what's up, man?
Hey, not much. Good to be here at a different time. So I appreciate you working with me on that. So for hopefully get some new people out here who are not ready for that 1 o'clock Eastern energy that we're about to give. So
hey, well, like we said on Twitter, grab your lunch,
Yep.
and sit back, relax, and kind of enjoy the fireside chat. I mean, going into the show today, it's like, boy, how do you top last week? When Vince McMahon retiring happens while you're on the show. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, I mean, we're gonna live up to it. We're gonna try, but boy, oh boy, that was something special, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy.
I think that will probably be an all-timer of fact checking the biggest news in our lifetime when it comes to the wrestling business.
Right.
Probably before. You're born pre or post 1985, right?
85. I was born in
85. What month, if I may ask?
January.
Oh, so okay. So you were born for the first WrestleMania.
Before,
technically, I would not agree with that statement that I just said because you were alive for the first WrestleMania, which is probably the most important thing in wrestling history.
Yes.
But so close. So close.
Without Vince McMahon, is it the most? I mean, yes, it is. But I mean, like, what comes? It was Vince McMahon's vision. So the fact that, hey, I think you could still argue that him leaving the company is still a major. I mean, it's a major story, man. Like I don't know. It's like it's so bizarre to think about because so many people have a vision of pro wrestling that is through the lens of Vince McMahon. Like this still is shocking my mind. Like a week out, like it's like all that changes. It's not about like even when we're like analyzing a show or whatever, talking about Monday Night Raw or SummerSlam, it's like, all right, well, what would Vince do? What would Vince do? Who would Vince push? What is he like? And by all accounts, it's not there anymore. It's not there. And so it's just a real interesting time to look at the business because I don't think anything's going to change drastically in the short term. But when we do this show a year from today, who knows what it'll look like? It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, especially for anyone that is a casual viewer, knows of wrestling, etc. I mean, the story's been told a million times, but as an anecdote, I was listening to a podcast that talks about the comings and goings of the business side of Hollywood, which is always very interesting to me. And there was like a mailbag question about, what's they were like doing buy, sell, hold. And this was recorded about a week ago of IP, intellectual properties. And WWE was high on the list because of what this person valued. They didn't watch. They said they were Hulkamaniacs when they were a kid.
Yeah.
And their producer's a little younger than me. And they're like, oh, yeah, I like Stone Cold, but I don't really watch it now. So, anecdotally, like those two people that really are talking about the business that don't really know much about the business outside of like what the numbers they see reported, saw that through the lens of Vince McMahon too. So that's like the key person there is like only McMahon. And they talked about that, him being the key piece to anything on an acquisition. So it's crazy.
That's the thing. I mean, and the other element of this too is like, so, it's one person. It was one person, one person as the CEO, one person at the top, one person making decisions, one person green lighting creative. And now it's like there's multiple people there because there's nobody that can do that full job, like because nobody's insane like Vince McMahon was. And like so now you've got Nick Khan, and you have Stephanie McMahon, and you've got Triple H, and like together the three of them are gonna put together this product and this company and this vision. And so it's not even just the focus shifts from one person to another person. It's just from one person to three people, which have different agendas. Like it's kind of coming together a little bit like a sports team, right? Where you've got like someone at the top of the business, someone at the top of like the business side of your organization. Then you've got the GM who's in charge of like player personnel, and then you have like the head coach or the manager, and it's like there's your like 3-prong window, and it's there's egos at play there, like follow any football team, and you'll see that, and so it's going to be interesting to see kind of where they land or who ends up with the most power out of the three, and just fascinating time. Hazan, what's up? Thanks for joining us. Steven, same to you, man. Appreciate you guys very much. But yeah, Tyler, I mean, like, did you get any sense this week at all, like watching any of WWE content or following like what they've done, that like, hey, maybe there's a pivot in store here creatively? Because I didn't really.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. And like I said last week, I think it's at earliest it's post Summerslam. You have a lot of your plans still in place, and as was reported, the Monday night episode of Raw which is every Monday, I guess, was basically the script that Vince McMahon had approved, prior to his exit on Friday. So that doesn't shock me. I think the only difference there really is that there's blood in the main event, right? And then besides that was like the way the show started, with a fight already in the ring to give that kind of excitement. Those are really the only two things I could even pinpoint to that felt slightly different as a bit of a tweak. So that was, some positiveness, but in general, the overall slog that 3 hours feels like was still all there in all its glory. And I think tonight should be similar on the final build. I think starting next week, and we'll see about anything that happens at SummerSlam is when you start to see that. But really, you got to take, a 6-12 month, really when we're talking about the road to WrestleMania is really when, if it's still the same at that point, then I think they've really missed the boat and have played it too conservative, but we'll see.
Yeah. We'll definitely see. Since we talked last, like Triple H is now the head of creative, head booker, if you want to use some old school wrestling terminology. That has been something that's been on the table for a very long time as far as what Triple H was being positioned for and groomed for. Now, that took a bit of a detour, I'd say, in the last 18 months.
Yep.
But now they're back. It's him. The only proof of concept we really know about him and how he would book a wrestling show is NXT, the black and gold NXT, kind of the NXT heyday. Everybody pretty much universally has praise for that era. But it was also, so I think people are going to automatically go, great, I can't wait to see what Triple H does in the main roster. My take on this, though, is, Triple H didn't have any handcuffs in NXT. Like, the product didn't have to make money. They did at the start of it, they didn't even have to worry about like commercial breaks and advertisers and like none of that, because it was on the network. He kind of could just book without any restraints, and he's not going to have that same luxury on the main roster. There's no way. And there's certainly a middle ground there as far as like, I think his formula can work on the main roster in theory, but he not going to have the same type of freedom. And so, he has to play by a lot of rules, when he's booking SmackDown and Raw. So I don't know that I would expect like a spitting image of NXT, Tyler. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, I agree. And then like to back up before I back into what you're saying there, I think Triple H, Paul Levesque, which I think is what he wants to be called now more than anything. So I'm trying to do my best there to respect that. But it's like when a performer moves to another territory and they change their name, you want to not use their dead wrestling name, right? You want to use their current iteration. But I think Paul Levesque was probably the best pay-per-view booker of this century, right? All those takeovers were leading to hot stuff. They always had good matches, a tight 3-hour window, only a handful of matches. But anyone that toots the horn of Triple H as a booker, I just don't think watched NXT on the network on a regular basis. They didn't watch all full 2 hours of stuff like that. And it's hard to do any of that, right? We have our critiques of Tony Khan, and we've had ours. But like some of the, especially the stuff on the network, like was entirely skippable. it was very much like a Rampage-esque type show in my mind, where if you only had Rampage and then you built to the pay-per-view and had your main stuff and those guys not really wrestle on that format. So obviously it's not going to be that, I think, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, no one's perfect. And so if you go in thinking Triple H is going to just like fix everything, it's all going to be hunky-dory, like, yeah, you got to set expectations that it could be different, but it could be worse. It could be better for you. Just depends on what you're looking for here. And yeah, I think, I'm definitely giving him the benefit of the doubt on this. And I mean, he's even said, I think it's been percolating on Twitter recently, his broken skull session thing. If he had full control, he would take Raw down to 2 hours, which I don't think is going to happen. You're not going to lose that much money. So he, like you said, still has some corporate shackles on him.
Yeah.
And that Vince McMahon accepted and therefore put the shackles on himself. So it feels different than when you're inheriting those shackles to put on yourself from a format.
Well, but the thing is, like you said, I mean, it's like they're not walking from the third hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's going to be $1 billion property, probably the next contract that they signed. There's just no way, as much as it would make it a better show without question. And obviously Triple H, Paul Levesque agrees with that, like openly. But that's what I mean. Like what I'm saying, like the realities there that exist. Like, he may not be able to change something. Like, oh man, I get so angry when, the wrestler makes their entrance and then, now we don't see him again for 10 minutes. Like that's super frustrating. I think it takes the wind out of the sails of the talent, of the crowd, all the above. But like there may be a reality in places where like they have to format the show that way because of how the USA Network schedules their breaks, and so it's like that he may not be able to change. Other things he will, but that type of thing he may still have to manage and still have to deal with. Do you comment on that, and then I have maybe an interesting question we can noodle on here.
No,
we get to some of the comments.
Yeah, I'll answer that quickly. I agree that he's going to be held to that stuff, and I think what he could do is you're going to have the 3 hours, but maybe you signal to the core, I don't know, let's say 300,000 people that watch, that are like kind of in the demo of me and you and people watching, right? That you signal to them like, hey, the first 15 minutes, first half hour, and like the last 45 minutes are like really crucial to like, and then has a lot of hot angles, and then the middle is kind of fluff that you can kind of like skip around. Not that you want to do that, or every hour has like the first 15, like signal sort of way where like I know as a fan, like I don't have to commit 3 hours, but I can pop in and watch an hour and a half of it and still get you ratings each hour, things like that. I think he'll tackle, that's what I would do if I was in that position, is try and hit those benchmarks for what, those hour by hour breakdown. How much do you need to watch in a certain hour? And does that mean you popping in and out, et cetera? All the things can be toyed with a bit because it's all kind of inexact science. And we still let one company decide, who's watching things. And, it's literally an average. Like not every house has a Nielsen box. If you have it, anyone that's streaming on YouTube TV or Hulu or Slingbox or anything like that, you're not being accounted for whatsoever, and they're taking literally an average of cable viewers. So all that can be played with a little bit. But yeah, what's your question that we can noodle on?
Yeah, well, here, let's get some of these comments first. Sean, thanks for joining us as always, man. Appreciate it. But so as far as like the regime of Triple H, could be making moves. We said last week that we know that he doesn't have a good, like maybe he has a good relationship, but it's not like a loyal relationship to the Kevin Dunns of the world or the Bruce Pritchards of the world. And as Hazan points out, Paul Heyman could be in a position to get the Bruce job down the road. Jeremy Borash, somebody that Triple H worked very closely with in NXT, may get the Kevin Dunn job. Steven chiming in with, hey, did he have some writers down in NXT? Yes, he did. Ryan Ward is one of the big names from that era of NXT that's been on the main roster though for a handful of years now. But they've got a relationship. So, I mean, what do you think about Borash and Dunn's role and Heyman in Bruce's role? And then also, just generally speaking, I mean, for the regime of Triple H, should this be a housewarming party of, hey, let's bring back Road Dogg. Hey, let's bring back Kevin Nash. Hey, X-Pac's out there. Let's get Sean Waltman back into the fold. Or, does he have, is that okay? Because, hey, it's these guys. They obviously know the wrestling industry. Or is it like, hey, yeah, but that, that looks exactly the way it looks, which is you're just hiring all your buddies.
Yeah. I'd say there's two things through not just wrestling, but through all human nature. When someone's in a position of power, I'm against sexual impropriety in that position of power and nepotism. So that answers, nepotism, the definition is like what? Helping you're getting family positions and people close to you. So yes, the Road Dogg, the Sean Waltman, the Kevin Nash stuff, I would be against just in general, the idea of it. If you have one at a time, Road Dogg did a lot of stuff that I think when SmackDown was the better show, he was getting a lot of credit for that. And then things kind of changed. That's, I don't know, what, 2017 era we're talking about here. So
yep.
as I choke on my answer there. So yeah, I think I would be against that in general. I think I would be against him just totally replacing. I don't think you did it on purpose, but you call it the Paul Levesque regime, not the administration. I think those are two different words, right? And I think regime is a coup, if you will, which is more what I've thought this has been the whole time, as opposed to a elected, peaceful transition of power, which you do from one administration to another, as opposed to one regime to another regime. So you didn't mean to do that, I don't think, but I think that's kind of what happened. I think your diction showed that. But and then on the micro, anyone but Kevin Dunn. I mean, I wanted Vince out personally for, I think, just the lack of creativity in recent years, and obviously the moral objection to supporting, talking about, watching, giving ratings to that program that he was in control of. But right below that is Kevin Dunn, and not giving me motion sickness every time I watch WWE television. And I don't think that'll change as much as I would like. I mean, I think AEW's grown leaps and bounds on their production video quality. I mean, it was a joke when they first started, especially the sound. You couldn't even hear the entrance music on TV for the longest time, or the crowd. But so getting rid of Dunn for me personally is would be the biggest coup of good news for WWE in a long time, and getting a different change to that camera style. So I think I answered all your questions, but let me know if I did.
Yeah, it's smart. I mean, look, I think he's got to walk a fine line. I mean, ultimately, I think what's going to matter in the end is a good product that draws ratings, right? That's the end game. And so if he brings in Kevin Nash and those guys and it gets the job done, no one's gonna care. But if he brings those guys in and it doesn't click, then you're gonna have to really see okay, is he really in this just to help his friends out, or does he want to get the product to where it needs to go? And I think it's definitely the latter. I don't. There's no sense that Triple H is going to treat this run like somebody trying to milk TNA for all it's worth in 2010.
Yeah,
I don't get that. I don't get that. That's what's going to happen here. But at the same time, I totally sympathize with the idea of, hey, you want people you trust around you, and you want things to be a little bit different. So it may not even be where, hey, he doesn't like Kevin Dunn. Or that it's like some kind of firing where, it's they're butting heads. It could just be, hey, I'm in charge. We need this thing to look different. I need it to be my era. So in order to do that, we can't have the same guy that's been sitting there for 30 years, directing the product. And it could be just as simple as that. And same thing with Bruce Pritchard. It's like, hey, I just need a fresh take, and that's that. So my question though, and it kind of touches on some of Sean's stuff here. Sean saying, hey, wanted to say I'm excited about Paul Levesque running the creative of the company. I think change will be slow. And I think he will be open to ideas more than Vince was. I agree. And that is the precipice of this question. So you're Triple H, and put like a realistic hat on, this. I don't want it to just be totally random. But if you're Triple H, what are 3 wrestlers right now that aren't being pushed, but that you think he would look at and go, I think I can make money with these guys. It's like, hey, we're not going to push Omos anymore. We're going to push X guy. Like, who's somebody that's not currently getting the love from the booking that may, if Triple H were to take over, and again, realistically, like Adam Cole can't come back, right? He's gone. So people that are there, where does your head go on that?
Yeah. So here's the hard thing with this question. I think you know this too, is that like kind of everyone the roster is so small relatively to even AEW, of almost everyone that I'm going to mention here has had a run at a top level that has been there. I see Azan put a couple things in there. So my personal ones would be at this time is AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn, because I think all 3 of them can be main event level type guys when you have especially 2 world titles and 2 people on a show that have established that they can kind of work within a system, but they've also worked with with Paul. AJ has, but not in that NXT capacity like Sammy and Kevin Owens have. And that was the peak of Owens in my mind, is his NXT run coming in and then coming and challenging John Cena, and him staying and Sammy staying too shows. It's like, I would want to reward those guys if I'm Paul Levesque, because they could have jumped ship too and gone over there with all their buddies, but they stayed. And I think that means something too, which is you think of like the corporate structure of like what begets more loyalty is showing it to the guys like that. And AJ Styles is just a guy that you can put, even his worst feud with like Samoa Joe probably. With that whole stuff. I mean, the matches are good. I mean, even like the stuff with Ellsworth and Ambrose, like, was total hot garbage, but like I watched it and it was like
he delivers.
Yeah. So, and the stuff with Undertaker, all that stuff. So I don't think he's like, doesn't need to be like push main event, but just the fact that he's like pretty much absent from important stuff on the show reaches out to me. But I like, of all of Azan's suggestions, I would say I like Ali as the best option there, because he hasn't had that chance, and I think he still has that commitment with the crowd that if he got a push, I think it would be a big moment. And they have very few guys like that you can have be like their first run and have it work so well. But how about you? What's your answer to that question?
Yeah. So like, when I think about the answer, like, look, I like Drew Gulak. I think he's a good wrestler for sure, but he's not somebody that if I'm Triple H coming in, I'm not going, oh, you know what we need to do? We need to put Drew Gulak in the main event. Like, he's a good wrestler. I like the guy, but I don't see him in that role. So when I answer this question, it's through that lens. And so where I go initially is, if I'm Triple H, like, and this is just like me being him, not me like pushing my favorites, but I'm looking at a way to, freshen up the top of the card, but have it not seem like completely drastic in the change. And so rather than looking at a guy like Tommaso Ciampa, let's say, who I think maybe like, 6 or 7 on my list, I would go with somebody like, like a Montez Ford, somebody who hasn't been pushed as a single star, somebody that he obviously has a relationship with, somebody who the crowd can see like, okay, hey, that could work, but somebody that's also not totally foreign to, viewers who watch the product regularly. So he'd be one. Kevin Owens would be another one for the same reasons that you said. And because, I mean, look, the guy delivered. He was in the quote unquote main event of WrestleMania this year against Steve Austin, And so the fact that he like plummeted off the face of the earth after that match into the Ezekiel stuff is like completely maddening. And so I think that would be my other choice. And then I think I would actually go down to NXT and grab Carmelo Hayes too. If I'm Triple H, because he's a guy that I think is, out of all the NXT 2.0, like that class, that first class, he seems to be the only person that has like put it all together. Like Solo Sikoa, I think, is pretty close, but not quite there yet. Braun Breaker gets the big push, of course, but I don't think he's fully delivered or developed in the ring or on the microphone. And so Carmelo Hayes is a guy that I don't know what kind of chance he would have got on the main roster with Vince McMahon booking. He's a small guy. He's not a big dude, but he's got a huge presence, and he's got a lot of charisma. And so I think I'd make my mark there too by going like, hey, it's going to look different because look, this guy's being pushed. So that would be my 3. But I don't know. I can't argue with yours though either.
Yeah. Well, mine's more, I think probably that more that like trying to transition lens. If I was in a spot who I'd want, because like what you're saying with Drew Gulak and Xavier and Ali, all these guys are great and are, in another life could have been main eventers themselves. Maybe not in Vince's world, but like,
yeah,
that's how you drop like to do that abrupt. Like if it's Monday night and Drew is beating Drew McIntyre, let's say randomly,
right.
Like that's like when ratings I think would plummet because it's you're blanching the audience, right? When you take something hot out of boiling water and throw it in ice water, that's like how that feels.
Yep.
That would be, and I'm thinking like while you're talking, and not that now if we can go into fantasy zone of like what's not in front of us, I'm just thinking like not random guys. I mean, he's the tag team champion, but can you imagine like Swerve Strickland under Triple H on Raw, like doing 15 minutes every Monday and being like he's so charismatic and he's so perfect for that WWE system. It's like, I mean, he works really well in AEW, and I think he's a star there, but he could be like twice as big a star today, I think, in this new regime. Just people like that randomly.
He really could be. I mean, that's the crazy thing about like what just happened. Like you had this exodus of talent from WWE, and a lot of it are folks like like Adam Cole, like Strickland, like Keith Lee, that by all accounts enjoyed their time in NXT and had good runs in NXT, but that just weren't going anywhere on the main roster because it's Vince McMahon, and now that's not the case, and now that talent's not there though. So it's kind of like, what do you do? That's a really good point.
And that. Well, go ahead. Sorry. No, I was just saying, like, that's like, we don't have to get into this, but then it leads to the fantasy booking line of, when MJF's available, when Ricky Starks is available, all those Cody guys, if you will, them going, is this an easier path through them now? All that stuff. That's just all the tentacles that's been talked about, but something to look for, like we saw Ricky Starks promo on Dynamite, and that seemed genuine of a guy who's not super happy with the way he's been pushed.
Yes.
And that to me is like, red alert to all that stuff, just like with MJF, and not to talk MJF, but like that shit was real, right? I mean, at this point. So
I think like, what's so funny is like, or I don't know, this is a sidebar from the conversation, but a good one, I think, or a good conversation to have. Like Tony Khan is going to have and is now finding out he's going to have the same problems that wrestling promoters have had since 1920. Like guys want to be pushed, guys have egos, people want to make money, so does he. Like, and it's just one guy. He's in charge. He's going to have likes and dislikes, and he can't push everybody. And I think for a while, like everybody was there kind of feeling, oh, great, we're a part of something. We're part of this, we're a part of that. But then it comes down to, hey, wait a minute, though. I want to be on TV more. Like, I want that. Or, hey, like, can I win a championship, or can I just get more promo time, than 40 seconds a week, like Ricky Starks said? And there are certain people on the show that get that, but not everybody. And it's like, so seeing him kind of walk through that, I don't even consider that necessarily like a negative on Tony Khan. It's just a reality that like, and that's why the business is cutthroat as it is. That's why, you got sharks swimming around, and the people who can play, the political game better than others are going to get more opportunities. I remember I watched an interview with, or listened to an interview with Ruby Soho. I think it was Renee Paquette. Maybe I told this story before. I don't know, but she mentioned on there, like, one of the questions that Renee had was, hey, what's your relationship? What was your relationship with Vince McMahon? And her answer was, none. Like, I barely even talked to him. And to me, I'm like, well, like, okay, like that's a problem. Like that's a problem. Like, it's one thing if you're like front and center and you're trying to like push your character and
Mhm.
advocate for yourself and delivering and then not getting pushed. But like, if you're not trying to build a relationship with the boss, it's like, okay, that's kind of on you. And I think that is happening in AEW right now. You've got different people that are getting different things and people that aren't getting other things that maybe aren't used to having to act a certain way because there's more talent than ever in that company. And it's interesting because that's like a normal thing in pro wrestling. But Tony Khan has kind of been in a honeymoon period for a while. That's now coming to an end.
But yeah, I mean, I think you're alluding to the Gresham situation, if I can read between the lines there.
Well, yeah, Gresham, but also Starks too. That promo, like, so it's not just Gresham, but Starks and Gresham, and like even MJF. It's like, hey, wait a minute here, like I'm a top star. I'm not being paid like one. I want to be paid. Like, it manifests itself in different ways, but I think you can look at to a lot of people. But then you look at somebody like, I don't have official like reporting on this, but hearsay says that like Britt Baker, somebody who she's playing a game backstage and isn't always the easiest to deal with, but is always around everything. And she gets a ton of TV time. She gets a ton of time to do what she does when she's on TV. Matters.
Well, yeah, and like if you're there in the beginning too, that helps as well. Like that's like, well, I think the Gresham thing is interesting to talk about when we're talking about Tony Khan here. And first of all, I like would play devil's advocate on the Ruby Soho thing. I fully believe that, like, unless you're Brock or Roman or a high level guy like Seth, that Vince probably doesn't have a ton of time for you. He probably didn't have. He's got lots of time these days, but back then, I don't think he was like, hey, go knock on his door like in 1999, like Stone Cold would tell someone to go do and talk to the boss, right? I don't think that, and I think Tony Khan's transitioning into that phase now too, because I think as he's president, CEO, booker, venue book, all the titles he gives himself in AEW.
Yeah.
If you're someone like Britt Baker who's been around since the beginning, yes, you can go to him at any point in time. But if you're Jonathan Gresham, per reporting, you talk to Sanjay Dutt or you talk to QT Marshall. And if you're, no offense to those two, I'm sure they're great in their backstage roles, but if you just came into a company and you're a world champion and you're only able to talk to those guys and not the boss himself about your character doing a heel turn that you don't want to do, obviously, that's just like and again, not to get into like how that was played on both sides, but like that just shows you kind of what especially if you're new and you're not like a super priority when you come in, like that's you're talking to QT, you're talking to, I don't know, Adam Pearce, right? That's like the equivalent. So I think it's just like that's the way the place AEW is right now, in this Tony Khan booking 17 shows and having a soccer team and part in a football team and all of the stuff he's doing. He's just not enough hours in the day, and that's manifesting itself in some negative attributes here. And unless he's totally locked in on a couple of guys, like he needs to have a trusted party of people, kind of like what we're talking about with WWE. I think that would be good if we were having this conversation with AEW, because the fact that Vince did it for 40 years is insane and had it work as well as it did. Because financially and successfully, you can't argue it. So just kind of what I'm seeing there, but we'll see.
It's fascinating. Because you got right now, like you have two people in Triple H and Tony Khan that are relatively close in terms of their tenure in being bookers of major wrestling companies. Like they're pretty close in terms of experience. Like Triple H doesn't have the big national experience with Raw or SmackDown, but he's got a lot more, with NXT, and the fact that he was, a top wrestler in the business, and Tony Khan has a little more years under his belt, but doesn't have the in-ring perspective. So whereas before it was like Khan versus Vince McMahon, this guy who's done it for 40 years, now they're a lot more on an even playing field as that goes, which, could make for some really compelling television. You mentioned the Gresham thing. Where's your head? Where are you at on that?
Okay, so I've spent time with Jonathan Gresham in person, not in an interview standpoint, not off the record stuff, just hanging out places.
Yeah.
Through Ryan Sullivan, as I did the podcast with him. So he had a lot of great contacts with Ring of Honor back in the day. So to see the reporting I'm seeing does not seem like the guy that I know, not personally, I don't want to say that, but that I've been around and interacted with. Is that a front? Is this a front? Who knows? But I think it's in general frustration at, where he was. And, is that what I would have had advised someone to do? No, of course not. Right. You don't want to burn a bridge to a place that of the two options, even if you don't like it, he's as good as there is in that sort of, Zack Sabre Jr., Bryan Danielson, Daniel Garcia now, like that style is hot in AEW right now. So I think long term, you kind of take the L here, which is, in your mind, BS, but like you can show your value. And I think you would have. So it's disappointing in that front. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a two-way street. I wouldn't have done it exactly the same way, but I can see like you're like literally the guy who carried the brand through the wilderness, and you come back and you get, squashed by Claudio, and that's where egos come in, all that sort of stuff. But like, I think even if you would have like had more TV time and then got beaten, I think it would have been better than him like barely. I did even walk out with the world title maybe once on AEW TV. So I don't know.
That's the thing. I mean, he hasn't been like a guy that, he just hasn't been treated as like a main big act.
Yeah, and like he isn't. So I don't want to be here being the big defender of Jonathan Gresham. I mean,
I hear you.
Like if I'm Tony Khan, like I have Claudio and him, and that's my match. Like, of course I'm gonna put Claudio in that spot, especially if there's like going to be some streaming there and whatnot. But like, he could also like talk to him. That's a pretty big change, right? I know he's got 37 titles, so he doesn't even have enough time to talk to all his champions about what their stories are in this company. But like, you have 3 world titles, right? The women's, the men's AEW, and then the ROH, and then the ROH women's, right? So you have 4 world titles. You can talk to 4 people and kind of let them know your story and treat them with some respect, I would say. But again, as Azan bringing up his PWI ranks. I was there for the conversations. Again, it doesn't seem like the guy I know, but when you're heated and angry and you feel wronged and you don't like, you're coming. Like I was asked about this on the AMA, so I think a lot of people watching this were doing that yesterday. So I'll sum it up quickly for you.
Hell of a show. If you are out there listening and you didn't hear it, tune in.
Yeah. But I compared it to like Gresham works for a smaller company that merged with a larger company. And when you transition in that merger, there's a lot of BS that you're like, this is stupid. I hate the way we do this, blah, blah, blah. But like, if you want to keep the job, you put up with the BS and you work your way through that system. And then, the cream will rise to the top, right? So that was the disappointing part there, because I think he's got a lot of potential, and now he's probably going to be doing more, impact with Jordan Grace obviously being there. And, if he's doing Japan stuff, that's fine. But yeah, that's kind of my overall take. I know it's not concise, but it's a hard situation. It just feels like a big letdown, because I don't think Tony Khan's the type of guy that's going to like forget stuff like that. I don't know if he's a best for business kind of guy. I don't get that vibe whatsoever.
Well, like you said, it's not like, it'd be, and this is where I'm going to transition to my thought just from there, because it's a good transition. My thought is, look, Jonathan Gresham, great talent. There's no doubt about it. Supremely talented guy. Worth being in a top level match, at the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, which he was. But he's not Brock Lesnar to that company. He's not John Cena to that company. He's not like on a CM Punk level or on an Adam Cole level or Kenny. Like he's just not yet. He hasn't been around. And so, it's one thing, I think, if you're those guys and you have some credibility, you have some clout, you can go to Tony Khan and say, hey, I'm not on board with this. Like just like in WWE, there's some people who have more influence than others. Same thing in AEW. Jonathan Gresham just was not one of those guys. And so you do have to kind of play the game in that instance. And I think, he played his cards a certain way, and it went how it went. But I think there's got to be a recognition at some point of like just looking at yourself in the mirror and going, okay, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get to that spot, but I'm really not there yet. So if they want me to job Claudio, okay, that's what I'll do, and I'll cash the check, and there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just it's so hard because like there is shades of gray. Like this was not, Steve Austin walking out, being asked the job to Brock Lesnar in an unpromoted match on Monday Night Raw.
Mm-hmm.
That is an icon of the business with a big money feud that you're not going to get any money out of because you want to run this match. That's a different story. That's a way, you have more political clout at that moment if you're Steve Austin than Gresham did it in this one. And so, I think at the root of it, at the heart, you want all your stars to feel that way. I think you want your wrestlers to want, like, are you kidding me? You're going to beat me? You're going to beat me like that? Mm-hmm. Like in the opener? I think you want them to have that question that go through their mind because that tells you they're competitive, they're business people. That's good. But you need to have that and then a recognition of, okay, but I'm not there yet. So yeah, let's go to work. That's where I'm at on it. And it's unfortunate because I think Gresham had a really strong future in AEW. Like there's really great matches for him to have there with Danielson and with Garcia. Even somebody like Hook, I think, could have a good match with Gresham. There's a lot of people, even like John Moxley, like those guys. And so it's a little bit unfortunate that he's not there, but it's almost, in this instance, I kind of feel like he made his bed with it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If you take the reporting at face value.
Yeah. And we'll see too. I mean, he said in that same reporting was that, he's going to not retire at the end of the month. He's booked for the Ric Flair show, but, maybe not wrestle a ton after that or take a hiatus whatsoever. And that is not exactly losing your smile, I would say.
Right.
But, I think Shawn Michaels to this day, like, I think how much more positively would he be viewed if that moment didn't happen in his career?
Yeah.
And that followed him. Like when you retire out of you not liking decisions, you kind of make your bed in certain ways, and that follows you, unfortunately. But I think it is unfortunate, and you would like him to talk to Tony Khan, maybe even cuss him out and be like, you're making a bad decision, go out, do the job and prove it. And then, that might get his respect or it might get him fired, whatever. But, getting fired is different than not being happy and walking out too. So it's a hard situation. Yeah. Not being there, it's hard to comment on it, but it is unfortunate. Yeah. He's one of the best at that technical
He's
style.
So good. He's so good. And like, frankly, I don't know that even Impact is a great place for that style, but it is in AEW. Obviously, it's not in WWE, but AEW it is. And so, I mean, I don't know if you were a betting man, does Gresham appear in AEW again at some point in the next 5 years?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. Like I said, I mean, just the way Tony Khan tweets and talks about certain things. Like, do you think Cody would be back in AEW? Would you think there's I just don't. Boy. Like if it's like if Cody left WWE back in the day and like literally like pissed on a picture of Vince McMahon on a ROH pay-per-view, Vince would take him back the next day if he was able, and it was going to make him money, right? That's like without question. You couldn't do anything and not come back in WWE if you make money,
right?
But like, obviously we have this is all just speculation, but I just don't think Tony Khan at this point is that guy. I think he will figure it out with people that have not wronged him, and he'll do a little snide tweet. I'm sure he'll send a tweet out when MJF premieres on WWE and the day after WrestleMania 2024, right? So so yeah, I don't know.
Boy, MJF. Yeah, I don't want to get into that.
But sorry. Twice I brought him up, but yeah.
While we're on the top of AEW, what did you think of the Jungle Boy promo?
I thought it was okay. I think the crowd was certainly behind him. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of where I am. To fight fire with fire, I don't think works in this feud in a certain way. So I think him taking the high ground would have been better for his character, as opposed to stooping and being essentially corrupted by Christian. Unless this is him like Luchasaurus turning on him in the match. I think that's still a possibility because it makes absolute no sense. I know that was not your question, but the fact that like Luchasaurus is like a drone around Christian, but then like Jungle Boy like can demystify him needs explained at least. But
yeah,
I'm not usually not that guy with AEW. Usually I can just like let things roll off and be like, yeah, it is what it is. But it's like totally dumb. And if you make Christian do fire first, fight fire with fire, and then Luchasaurus turns on him and makes him question everything and like learn that that's not the way. I don't think they'll tell that story. That feels like the Hangman story that was kind of filled in the blanks by fans and by people here on the Torch that are big fans of Adam Page that I love, Eric Kroll, but
not like articulated on television. Though.
Correct. Yes, it's all like they're like it's Tony Khan going like, yeah, you get it. Like that's the feud, that's the story. It's like, well, no, hold on, you got to explain it for everybody.
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of how I thought. You were shaking your head, so I think you agree in at least portion of that.
I totally agree. I mean, and here's the thing: it's not because it was like a bad promo. Like I think it was probably his best promo to date in terms of delivery and sounding like an authentic person, having an emotion behind it. Like I think all the check boxes checked. But part of being a babyface is not going there. Like that's part of it. It's walking the line of showing fire, showing that you care, showing that you're not going to get walked all over, showing that, hey, this is what I'm going to do. You said that about my dad who's not alive. You talk to my sister and mother that way. Like, this is what I'm going to do to you. I'm going to beat you up. Like whatever word you're going to use. That's the line you have to walk. That's the needle you have to thread because it's easy to go the way of Christian, right? Mm-hmm. That's the whole point. He was a babyface. He's good guys and bad guys. And so he, to me, just went way, way off course. And that's not Jungle Boy, really. I mean, I think you needed to come out there and show edge. I think you needed to come out there and show fire and intensity, but you don't want to totally just pivot your character out of right field either. And that's what it felt like to me. It felt like, hey, what can I say here to sound like a badass? But that's not really him, I think he had to go a different route. So I watched that and was like, wow, that's pretty, like, it's decent stuff from Jungle Boy if you just analyze it from how he was working. But bigger picture though, it's, dude, why? Like, what? Where the hell did that come from? Just walk out there, say you're going to kick his ass, and it's going to happen at All Out, and boom, you're done. Leave it at that. That's to me as a babyface promo. This just went way too far.
Yeah, you just got to. Do it like anyone would do. I don't know, at a barbecue at a bar or something, right?
Yes.
Where someone comes up to you and like, if they made fun of your father who had died tragically. I mean, all deaths are tragic, but especially how young Luke Perry was and the circumstance and the suddenness of it. Like you would just say like, well, you've broken the code of being a friend and a man, and I'm going to kick your ass. And I'm going to prove to you, like, even though my father's dead, I'm going to fight for him and his honor because he's disrespected. Like, just like whatever sort of that line is, as opposed to, because it really makes me think, I don't think this is going to happen, but like the 3D chess you can play that almost never happens in wrestling is like, okay, Luchasaurus was corrupted. Is Jungle Boy slightly corrupted now? And like Christian's going to win this match and they're all going to be a heel tag team together, which like I would be like, okay, well, that's not the way I would book it, but maybe that's interesting. But also it's not going to happen, right? It's going to be Jungle Boy winning, going off to, and this does cloud a little bit. It just speaks of like, I don't know what this process is for stuff like this. Is it just him and Christian coming up with the idea, or like, I don't know, someone like you have a guy like Jericho there. You got Paul White. We probably don't ask him because he'll flip back and forth if you ask Paul White. Don't ask him. But there's lots of pros in the back. You just like bounce it off 3 people and see what they say, and then like make your decision from there. If you have to totally take it into your own hands, which is what it feels like a lot of the time. Maybe 2 would say what you and I are saying, and 1 would say like, "Oh yeah, call him a pussy." It'll be hilarious.
Right.
That'll get people to like you. And they'd be like, "Okay, well, Billy Gunn and Jericho told me this, and Paul White and Christian told me that. So I guess I got to decide who's who to trust or whatever."
Yeah.
So
and we'll see. Well, and the other element of it too is that I had a problem with was like that's your okay. If you have to do that, right? If you feel like you absolutely have to have that type of promo, they've got 5 weeks until the show. It's like, what do you do now? Like, what do you do now until then? I mean, you pretty much went there in every way. You don't really have much left to say. So what are you going to do for 5 weeks? So that was the other issue. But I wanted to ask because it was so glaring and so jarring.
I mean, Christian's MJF now, so Christian's going to make him do like 3 things to earn the match. I say if we do that, big thumbs down.
Big thumbs down.
Yeah, I can see him doing it though.
Because that wouldn't make sense. I don't think that would even make sense from Christian's angle within the feud either. Like, because he's like, the guy who turned on. He's looking down on Jungle Boy. He's almost. He should be, overall dismissive of him and his challenge, not like, hey, here's what you have to do to face me. But that's just been way overdone in AEW.
Correct.
On the MJF front, even if you take everything else out of it.
Yeah, he had to stop doing that, let alone Christian. I mean, what they should have done, and not that really anyone has asked, but like very easily, don't have Luchasaurus just like be his friend as soon as he sees him the first time. Have Jungle Boy face Luchasaurus in the main event of the Dynamite in 2 weeks, after Quake at the Lake. And then like in that fight, you have Luchasaurus like remember who his friend was, and they like fight it out and hug like brothers at the end. You have Jungle Boy beat this guy who's just destroying people, so he looks strong as a result. And then you can justify, him climbing that ladder, then him and Luchasaurus getting back together, and then they take on Christian, and then they win. And it's just like it's so easy. That's why it's like almost has to be another story here because it feels so convoluted. But yeah, and also the Christian cut-in was dumb. I did like him explaining why he ran. I thought that was hilarious. Heel work. He was worried about what he was going to do to Jungle Boy. I thought that was like grade A chicken shit heel work.
Right it was. Yeah. Good. Thanks for commenting, Sean. So let's do one more AEW topic, and then I want to give SummerSlam a little love here too.
And I answered this yesterday, so you take this, and I'll refer people back to the video because I think Sean is the one that asked me yesterday also about this question about the concussion stuff. So you answer it, and I don't want to. You can go back to the video and watch it if you want my reaction as a cheap.
Yeah. So, generally speaking, I don't love it just because I think it takes away from like working other injury angles in wrestling during wrestling matches. Like that's the root of it for me. I don't have a problem with like the drama behind it. I don't have a problem with like the fact that you're exploiting like an injury. That's not my issue because I think that's what wrestling is. Like you're trying to manipulate and exploit. That's the whole point. But in this instance, when you work an angle like that, it's like the psychology behind it is that this is more real than me cranking on the neck of another guy or the head of another guy because I know for real that Bryan Danielson has concussion issues. And I think it just kind of messes up the narrative and like the agreement between the viewer and the wrestlers, which is, hey, we're fighting out here. And if one part of the fight is more real than the other parts, I think that's where it doesn't jive with me. And so I like I said, the story of it, I'm good with, but I just think it hurts kind of like the rest of what you're trying to do out there as an artist. If you try to sell more that, hey, this matters more here because of what is really going on in Danielson's, life. So that's my take on it. What you agree? I'm crazy. What?
No, I mean, I don't like it really in general to be like, especially when someone comes right off injury. Like I like in real sports, let's say like Kevin Durant, right? He missed a whole season. He tore his Achilles in the NBA finals, then missed the whole next season.
Yep.
He starts the next season, and it's not like every announcer, every time he takes a jump shot, is like, oh, his Achilles, I don't know. But like in the back of your mind as a fan, you are looking for that because that's there. So it's like subliminally, I'm already looking for this. And like, I don't need it pounded over my head because it feels very contrived. When it's just like pounded over my head over and over again. Like, oh, remember Seth Rollins came back from a torn ACL, so we got to sell the knee for a year and a half after he comes back. It's just like all that sort of stuff is. I'd like it to be a little bit more subtle than it is.
Well, and then like how long do you do it for?
Yeah,
because Danielson's always going to have concussion issues.
Yeah.
So is this like an every match thing?
Yeah, I
like
mean, Starks is still selling his neck.
Starks,
crazy.
Yeah, I know, and that that gets old a little too. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so let's pivot to SummerSlam,
Cool.
you guys. So Azan, Sean, Steven, SummerSlam thoughts. We're curious as to what your guys are. High level, Tyler. I'm kind of like, I'm just down on the build to this card. Like, I think that like most WWE pay-per-views, it's going to deliver come Saturday night. Like, I think it will. There's good matches there. It's going to be hard for the Street Profits and the Usos not to have a good match. Belair and Liv Morgan. It's going to be hard not to have a good match. Same thing even with Brock and Roman and like the last man standing stipulation. Like, hey, that probably going to be good. But the builds for these are just, it's like they're like limping to the finish line. All of them. It's like you had the final promo from Paul Heyman, and it's like, okay, that's good, but like nobody really cares about Brock. You didn't even really do anything with Bianca and Becky. Where's the go home there? Like that didn't exist. The Logan Paul Miz stuff is just completely out of whack in terms of like where they are from a character perspective. I think the Usos and the Street Profits is a great program, but for some reason, like, has Jeff Jarrett involved for no reason. And so like when you break it down and you're like, hey, like what are the better built matches on this show? And your answer is like Liv Morgan versus Ronda Rousey. That's not a good place to be for the second biggest show of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked off air, but I think Seth having a match, and if he does against two, is the most intriguing storyline coming into here, because all of this is more, the Vince stuff. I mean, it's all a good thing in the long run that he's gone, and then we're getting some fresh air, some new ideas, hopefully. But like, this is very much like a wounded duck pay-per-view, right? Like, all this stuff has been set in place, and it feels a little bit like the fourth NFL exhibition game where the starters like don't even play, like nothing really matters. You're trying to survive to get to the next, literally to get to Monday, to kind of reset and do, the next 6 months of content before you start the WrestleMania season, is what it feels like to me. But
the thing is, if this was like, Backlash,
yeah,
I think you'd probably be able to get away with it. But it's not. Like, this is SummerSlam. This is the second biggest show of the year, man. Like the fact that it's limping in like this, I think it's pretty.
Yeah. And is there? I haven't checked WrestleNomics or WrestleTix. Like, this sold out a stadium. Like,
I think they had it set for like 30-something thousand, and I think they sold that minute.
Okay, probably half going to the Ric Flair thing, if I had to guess.
I don't know if we should touch that with a 10-foot pole. I'm really ornery about that.
Well, we're not doing a live version of it, so I think that tells everyone what they need to know. I guess how you and I feel about it.
Yeah, right.
We're not doing a watch along, so
exactly.
This, I mean, it feels very par for the course for builds to WWE events, minus WrestleMania. Even WrestleMania was not like the hottest build of all time. Thank goodness for the Cody thing and potentially having Stone Cold. Like, that helped build that show's excitement. But this is what I'm excited for, to get away from stuff like this that just feels like nothing matters. I mean, the main events are the same. Like, I know I've seen the graphic, but I was surprised the number of times. I thought it was more that Brock and Roman had a match at a big pay-per-view. So, you're good for 2 of those a year. You have essentially 3 big shows, right? So almost every WrestleMania and SummerSlam, it's Brock and Roman, and then you have Survivor Series, and you have Royal Rumble that have gimmick matches that help to not convey that main event being so bad. So this is I've talked about a lot, and I've been down on their booking pattern for a long time. There's a lot of issues with AEW, as we talked about, with character work that's not great, but like overall, at least there's like, if Punk's healthy and you got Punk and Moxley as the main event, like that is a hell of a match. And
huge match.
And it's been like, that's the lemonade of all matches, right? Of what's happened here. You've got the FTR challenging probably Swerve and Keith Lee to get all 4 belts. Like that's an awesome match waiting to happen, I would think. You have probably Christian and Jungle Boy. Now the character work's not great, but that's gonna be a huge moment for somebody. It feels, this is all just like, like Logan Paul and Miz are misbooked on characters, which is a problem, but it's not the biggest problem even with that match. It's the fact that just no one cares about either of those guys wrestling.
Right.
I don't care if they're good or bad. It's like I don't care about either of them, period. So that's the problem, more so than the character work on that stuff. So
yeah, man. I mean, well said. I mean, that's it. And it's like, that's why when I look at Liv Morgan and Sean, thanks for checking in on the Canvas show. Yeah, I did a quick on the Canvas style preview for VIP members. Go VIP, check that out. PWTorch.com/go VIP. But sign up and subscribe to our channel at the same time. They're a package deal. The fact that like Liv Morgan versus Ronda is one of the better built ones, and that's not saying it's good, it's just better than some of the other ones, and that the McAfee stuff with Corbin is also some of the best. There's just something fundamentally wrong about that. Like Pat McAfee should not be coming in and having and dragging Happy Corbin to like this great build. Shouldn't happen. Not with Roman Reigns on the show and the Usos on the show and Seth on it just should not happen. Let's talk Liv and Ronda here quickly, and then we'll kind of run down some picks. So Sean says, I'm really curious to see where they go with Liv and Ronda for many reasons. Will Ronda turn heel, even though she should have already? Tyler, we were on a live show watching Liv Morgan win the Money in the Bank and then cash in her opportunity. But there's business in Ronda Rousey, and that business to me is Becky Lynch. That's where they're going. I maintain that, and I analyze anything Ronda Rousey through that lens, right or wrong. But for that reason, I think you got to go with Ronda here. And if that means heel turn, I think it just will mean heel turn because of how that's booked, and Liv Morgan's pretty solid babyface right now. And it's a tough position to be in because I don't think you want Liv to lose right now either. But Ronda losing again, I don't think that's smart either. And I think of the two of them, Liv can attempt to come back, whereas Ronda, you only have her for another 6 or 8 months. So I'm going Ronda here, man.
Yeah, with your initial question with like Triple H and like pushing guys that have not been pushed, like the instant switch I would hit if I was him is making Ronda heel and maximizing her ability to get that big match at WrestleMania and just be an interesting character. At least her getting a reaction, getting booed is better than her being out there and literally saying nothing for a year, it feels like to me, in her current role. But I think, and then I think we can call Liv Morgan probably Hangwoman Liv Morgan. She's on the same trajectory as Adam Page of like proverbial fan favorite, gets there and then it's like, nah, from a booking standpoint, like, yeah, we're just kidding.
Yeah, we're okay.
Yeah. So not to the same extent, but that's how I feel. It's like proverbially like their moment's going to happen even after their moment's happened. And so I think we just look at those two the same, and you see a correlation between two different companies there. But yeah, I think Ronda going heel and getting the belt and like destroying Liv and like kind of going Super Saiyan, if you will, and really activating her full potential and just like obliterating people for months on end is the right call. So
well said. And I think if that happens, it'll kind of cushion the blow of Liv kind of losing the title, because then she's at least involved in like a storyline. Like there's a comeback story to tell there. If you just kind of have her go out there, go 50-50 with Ronda during the match and then lose, it's like, okay, like, where do you go?
Yeah.
Where do you go from there? At least this has like a weird, it'd be a weird story behind it, but at least there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
The main event, man, I think it's just a mess. That's my opinion. Like, I think it's an absolute mess. I think Paul Heyman tried real hard to sell it this week, and he cut a good promo.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I just don't see interest here. I don't see intrigue here. Roman Reigns is going to win, and that's it. And we've already been there multiple times. So it's like, I don't get anything out of this. And it's not just me personally. It's like, I don't see even what they are going to get out of it from business perspective. Like, only bad things could happen here. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. Like,
like injuries, you mean? Stuff like that?
Injuries, or, if you try to do a Theory cash in successfully, and Theory beats Brock after Brock beats Lesnar, or after Brock beats Roman, like, then Roman's beat, and you got to deal with that. And Theory's your world champion. Like, it's like, I just don't see an angle here that makes me change my mind at the end of it. If they have a good match, to Sean's point, maybe they will, and that would be good to watch the show. I don't know if they will. And I think it's hard to have a really good match when everybody knows what the outcome is going to be. I think the psychology there is difficult. And so I'm going Reigns, but I'm not high on this at all.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect distillation of the Vince McMahon, this final era of his in the booking, right? This whole match is booked for what happens after the match. Like, the match itself does not matter in the slightest. It's all about, the only story is, does Theory, maybe he'll get his name back, I don't know.
Maybe.
Will Theory come in and cash out? Will he cash in? And what's going to happen, he's going to come in at the end of the match, Brock's going to F5 him, and then Roman will spear Brock. And then you can tell a story between Brock and Theory if you want to do that at another show, for the UK show, potentially, whatever. But the fact that you have a whole main event that, it's like one of the two biggest shows of the year, like, you should end things at shows like this, not just, it's not a river like this, and maybe just make it a waterfall. Like, the water's going somewhere, and where it comes from, whatever. That's a bad analogy with water and wrestling, but yeah, like, nothing means anything. Like, the Pat McAfee match means more because he's probably not going to feud with Happy Corbin forever, and this means something to him.
Right.
Like, it's just, not every match needs to have an end date, but like, your main event, like, just have it mean a little bit more than what's going to happen as soon as the bell rings. Because, like, it's, just obviously you can tell. Frustrated with that. So I hope Paul Levesque changes that just a bit.
Paul, when you watch this back later, you're welcome.
Yeah.
For the advice. Okay, let's keep going here. Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair, Raw Women's title. I'm almost in the same exact spot with this as I am with Roman and Brock.
Mm-hmm.
The match, I think, is going to be awesome. I love the match at WrestleMania 38. I thought it was a great match. But that, to your point, was a match that built to there and then ended the story there. Bianca gets the win back. Boom. And now you can go to a third, okay? It's not that you can't do it. But, like, what's the story here? Like, can you, Tyler Sage, tell me what the story is here between these two women? Like, yes, Becky wants the title. Bianca hasn't been very likable here. I don't think there's any real incentive for the audience perspective to want to, like, make sure to cheer her on so that she can beat Becky again, like there was at WrestleMania. So you're going to have a good match, but that's it though. And I think Bianca retains, and whatever happens next with Becky happens next. I think you can use this match. The one positive out of this is I think you can use this match to turn Becky Lynch babyface. Just you can kind of like have a moment for her where she's like, hey, okay, I was not the better woman, and I think you can have her shake hands with Bianca and then kind of like start the babyface turn from there. I think you can pull that off. You can also pull off like a double turn if you wanted. I think Bianca's not in a great place babyface wise, and Becky's not in a great place heel wise. So it's a potential moment to do that. I don't think they will. I think Bianca goes over clean here, and the nuance of Becky turning babyface would make it a thumbs up. Otherwise, it's flat.
Yeah, I think it's flat. I think this is a good example of why every feud does not need to go 3 matches for major titles. It just sometimes there's not enough juice there, and that's the problem here. I feel like where this was good in the beginning, and even the second match, there's things to for Bianca to get. She's proven everything she's needed to proven against Becky. So that's why this feels weird. And it feels like a desperation thing for the heel, which that would then need. There's not a stipulation on this match, is there?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely needs a stipulation. It needs like that heel needs to like beg and claw, like this is the last time I can get at you, for this to feel like a real story, as opposed to just being like, hey, we know you watched that second match, but like, this doesn't really matter a ton here. That's how I feel. I think Bianca going heel would be bad in the long run, personally. I think you probably do too. I think, has she faced Rhea recently?
She has. Well, she was going to, and then Rhea had that issue.
So she seems to be back. I mean, has she worked a match?
No.
So, she's been beating people up backstage and whatnot. But if she's available, just like a true, heel that's going to get booed for sure. That's what Bianca needs to do next. And I think get through this. And if you have Bianca win and Becky kind of like what you're saying, maybe show some grace here, and as like the start of a comeback tour, I think that would be the best you can get out of this, to then set her up for her WrestleMania moment, beat Ronda, become the man again, or whatever version of it you want it to be. I think if that happens all a year, 9 months from now, then we can call this a success in the grand scheme of history. But if none of that happens, if she just loses and it's the same story, then I don't know. That'd be a thumbs down, but we'll see. But the match should be good. But yeah, it's just like more of the same. The match should be good. The build has been subpar the entire time, and it's just like it's one of those things. So, but it's like a top 3 match on the card for me still. So.
Oh, definitely, yeah, for sure it is. Because it's going to be a good match, but it's just does it matter or not?
Yeah,
I would say probably not. Yeah, I don't think I'd be doing this, Hazan. I'm with Sean on that. No, first of all, they need this match to deliver. I mean, it's a big match now, especially with Cody and Seth, Seth and Riddle not on the card. They need this one to deliver. So no, I don't think that will happen. Bayley is interesting, Sean. By all accounts, she's either ready or close to ready to coming back. I'm putting her against Ronda Rousey. That's what I would do. Mm-hmm. I'll bring her back as babyface, like you said, Sean, because I think fans just are going to want to see her again, and she just has been gone a long time. And Rousey and her have not had matches before, and so to me, that's a perfect babyface for a newly crowned heel Ronda champion to work with. So that's what I do there. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean she's the only character in pro wrestling that can come out with like a different hairstyle, and she's a face or a heel, right?
Yes.
If she doesn't have to have the side pony, but she has like a ponytail and not the Karen hair. Then for sure like she's back as a baby face, and people will be excited to see her anyway. Especially if she like saves somebody, maybe she comes out and helps Bianca. Whatever, there could be any number of things.
I mean, maybe she saves Liv Morgan.
Yeah, and then that sets up, that gives like that story until the Rumble. You can tell that story between those two is like the main event. Yeah, I mean, then Ronda gets it from Liv eventually after this at the UK show maybe. Mm-hmm. But that would work. I think she'll be a babyface though pretty naturally. If she comes out back as a heel, I think that'd be a huge mistake, and I don't think
big mistake.
I don't think Paul is doing that right now.
Yeah, Paul, you've been good on that. So we have a couple other matches. We got Happy Corbin against Pat McAfee. I don't think there's anything a ton to discuss there, man, because I think McAfee goes over. Same thing with Logan Paul and Miz. Not a lot to discuss there. I think Paul goes over. I think the story of that match is how the crowd reacts to him. I don't think it's going to be favorable.
Yeah, I agree.
And let's see, what else haven't we got to? So the Usos and the Street Profits with Jeff Jarrett as a special guest referee. Unified tag team titles on the line. I hate this. I hate this so much.
Especially because they had the best match of like their careers, the last pay-per-view. And
yes. I mean, if there was ever a time to like not cuting something up, it was this. This was like put them in the ring, have them cut a few promos against each other, have them wrestle at SummerSlam, open the show, crazy opener. Like this was a damn layup, man. And now it's got Jeff Jarrett in there, and like, yeah, maybe Jeff's gonna turn, but if he turns on the Street Profits, that would mean that like he's kind of with the bloodline, and that's not gonna happen, you know. So I think it's a good point, Azan, in terms of like how he might factor in. But I just way too cute. I know it's in Nashville. Get Jarrett on the card some other way. Period. Yep. End of story. I think this is gonna be a good match. It could be the match of the night. I think the Usos win. But this one makes me angry.
Yeah, you could just have him and Ezekiel do something together.
Right. Do something like that.
Hit somebody with a guitar, and then you're done.
Hit somebody with a guitar. Like everybody.
Have him be the ref for McAfee and Corbin. That's the stakes of his involvement.
Yes. Yes.
And that I could be happy to never see Jeff Jarrett on my screen ever again, personally. So that's just where people know where I'm coming from. So
so you're not ordering the Ric Flair's last match?
I'm not. Also at the GCW show, I'm very prevalent and like getting in his face as he left the arena. Kayfabe.
Well played.
Yeah. But so not just, I don't know, I think he's a blight on the business. I think he gives a lot of wrestlers and performers a bad name, as that's like the archetype that some people shoot for, and I think he's a bad example. So but that's just me. So
tell us how you really feel.
Yeah.
All right, that's the card. One thing left. What is Seth going to do on this show?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, do you think he's going to have a match?
I don't think so. Because I don't know who he would have a match with. That's the problem. On the surface, yes, I think you always want to have him on the card, but like, who does he wrestle?
Yeah, I mean, if he does wrestle, it's got to be Johnny Gargano, right? I mean, that's the only option of like a free agent who, there's really not a ton of like free agents out there or people that are out of their contract at AEW that you get to come over quickly. And, with Paul Levesque taking back over, I think Gargano would be more open to that sort of booking style. So that's a huge moment. That would be the story of SummerSlam, just like Cody and Seth was the story of WrestleMania, independent of Stone Cold being in a match. So if you're Seth, that would sell huge to me that you're in two of the biggest matches of the year. And that's just like, if it's not that, or as Azan has commented there, Bray, which I like a lot less. Personally, I would be interested to see his booking, like that character working in another person's booking style, but he just can't wrestle. So that's like the big problem with his character. So if Seth comes out and he demands someone, and then Johnny Gargano comes out and the whole place explodes, it's the middle of the show, it feels like a huge moment, it makes Johnny feel like a huge star, then that's all a win to me. If not, then don't have him do anything, in my opinion. Right.
If that's what happens, that would be, because you got to think there's a couple of things at play here for me. It's like, Sean, it's a work, the injury to Riddle. They're playing up the angle from Monday night. So there's that. So it's not real. They're going to go to this match, I think, at some point per reports. But you got to wonder, like, why take this match off the show? Like, if you don't have something better, like, why? I don't get why you would take this match off the show. Well, it doesn't make any sense to me. So it tells me they've got something.
Yeah, like him and Triple H tweeting each other. Like, I mean, they've been telling stories together forever, from NXT days to the Architect stuff and all of that stuff. I mean, they work really well together. And I think Paul Levesque knows that Seth Rollins is so key to what WWE is in the last decade, and that he is. I know I say this a lot here, but I mean, he's back here, not, as a wrestler, not as a human being, but I really think Seth Rollins is like the Macho Man for kids of this era. Like, if Roman is your Hulk Hogan or whatever, like your main guy, like that number 2 guy that doesn't win all the time, but is like kind of cooler than that. I wouldn't be surprised if, when me and you were 60 and we're talking to whippersnappers on YouTube that people have, Seth Rollins, Macho Man posters and they're back. So I think he's important. I think Triple H would understand that more so than even Vince did in the history of things. And like telling good stories between the two of them makes sense. And that makes a lot of sense to me too. But, I don't know. We'll see. I'm still open to be very disappointed. That's why I'm not what's the guy who does Wade have on all the time? The guy who's on the NXT pre-show stuff. Sam Roberts, right? Roberts, yeah. That guy is so good at hyping up absolutely total BS. There's no way it's gonna happen, but it's like, oh man, this guy should be booking the show because like he has always like great things, and I don't want to get into that, but he's a great fantasy booker. So I don't want to get into that zone. I've still been hurt so many times by WWE. I'm not gonna say it's gonna happen. I'm gonna assume nothing's gonna happen. And they're holding this only to have a big match at the UK show and whatever. But we'll see.
I mean, right. It could likely be that or, Kane or something.
Oh, jeez.
Like Kane, like to me, is like always like the disappointed surprise opponent.
Yeah.
And now there's a whole nother layer of reasons why I just like.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well, that SummerSlam, man. It's kind of, I mean, like it's between all the Vince McMahon stuff. Mm-hmm. And the Triple H stuff, like SummerSlam, it's like, and the fact that it's kind of at a different time of year, mm-hmm. So it doesn't really feel like SummerSlam time. It's a bit of an afterthought, I think. I think once we get there tomorrow, it'll, I think you'll start feeling the hype train a little bit. But mm-hmm. Until then, it seems.
When's the UK show? Is that like early September?
So it's the day before All Out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's good. I mean, that's a lot of time to build, especially if you do Drew and Roman. You can tell a good story there. So
yeah, you're right. You can tell a good story there.
Yeah, I'd say if we're in the same zone of the build, feels like pretty blah for that show as it does for this. I think that'd be a big problem. I mean, obviously, I think you got to get a Gunter match kind of on the record. I mean, the UK fans love him and was Progress champion for forever. Yeah. So I think Paul Levesque is good at tying back to those sort of things and getting some key matches that are like, if you have 8 matches, like 3 of them are like built for that like hardcore audience that's there and those fans, and you intersperse those throughout the show. If we don't see that, then like I think we really start to question what's actually going on, who's calling the shots, all that sort of stuff. Because if it's not that has to be a takeover with 5 matches, but if it's not booked in that sort of way, then I think just something to flag to people.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, here we go. Last question. Sean says here, the show will be very long, so I'm glad maybe in that sense that Riddle and Rollins isn't happening. If I gave you the over under at 4 hours and 12 minutes for the main show, what would you take?
I'm on the Wikipedia. Nothing has an asterisk that's on the pre-show. But I'm going to say we have 9 matches. I'll assume that Seth has a match. I'll take the under on that.
Under? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See how that shakes out. 412 under. All right. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you. Thank you, Azan, Sean, as always. Thank you very much, Steven, for chiming in. I want to make sure I don't forget anybody here. Scrolling. I'm scrolling. I know there was somebody else who chimed in here.
Jason, I got Jason.
Jason, yes, thank you, Jason. And to answer your question, Jason, no, Riddle's not actually hurt. It is kayfabe. So, if you're a Riddle fan, don't worry. But thank you, everybody, and thank you everybody for listening after the fact. Got some good stuff up at the channel right now, guys. Tyler did a special Ask Me Anything show yesterday, which was a blast. There's an interview with Laredo Kid up there, which I really enjoyed. There's an interview with an author of the book coming out called The Territories, which was a really cool listen. News updates, and so on and so forth. So do us a favor, subscribe, tell some friends, have them subscribe too, and I will see you back here, guys, during SummerSlam. Tyler, you won't be with me this time, but we'll be thinking of you in spirit. And if you want to join at any time, you'll have the link and just hop on.
Yeah, I'd say if we go on the over on that, I might be able to hop on for the main event. We'll see how things. I mean, that would be probably apropos for me to come in, and maybe have a drink or two in me and really tell you how I feel about that. I'll just come in and I'll drop a theory face, just like zoomed in on my camera, and I'll just go.
Great.
I guess that's more Danhausen face than a theory face. So yeah. Hopefully I can hop on with you late in the show tomorrow. But no matter what, you should watch with Zach because
we're gonna have a blast.
Yep,
we will have a blast. But all right, well, but thank you, Tyler. A blast as always. Good stuff. Enjoy your dinner tomorrow night, and hopefully we'll see you. But for everyone else, tomorrow, right here on the Fireside Chat. Bring your cold beverages, and we'll have a good time. We'll see you all later. Thank you.